BBOR Black Box Online Radio, coming to you from West Virginia. BlackBoxNed88 on Instagram for the bonus podcast. And just a quick reminder, every Monday is Zodiac Mondays. Wednesday is an Ask Me Anything. That's an AMA, so please drop your questions below for things that you would like discussed here on the show. And Friday is an Anything Goes. Any subject is fair game, mostly talking about true crime, serial killers, the Zodiac Killer, but any subject is welcome. All right, so please share some ideas in the comment section about what you would like to hear about on this channel, and let's get started. Okay, hello everybody. Today is Monday, another Zodiac Monday. Welcome to the show. But before we begin, there are a couple of quick announcements. The first is a big thank you to everyone who checked out the episode, What is the Best Sitcom of All Time? This is mostly a true crime channel, but sometimes it's nice to do lighter material, especially during October and December, talking about horror movies and Christmas movies. But I figured, why not just do a bonus episode talking about something that is definitely easier on the brain. And a lot of people weighed in the comments section. A lot of very good feedback on that episode, What is the Best Sitcom of All Time, here on Black Box Online Radio. And also, there is a new item for sale in the TeeSpring store, the first ever Black Box Online Radio sweatshirt. There are two of them, actually, and this is very important to all future retailers. If you're going to have hooded sweatshirts, you need the ones with the zipper on them, and the ones that are the pullover, because some people absolutely love zipper hoodies like me, and then there are people who just want the pullover ones because they want to have that pouch in the front so they can rest their hands while they're walking briskly on an autumn day. No matter what, I invite you to check out the material in the Teespring store. Links to that are in the description box. And another great way to support this show is to go over to Amazon.com and have a look at the book Killer on a White Horse by me, Ned DEHAN. It is a novel, murder mystery, inspired by the Zodiac Manson connection, but it is fictional. However, who doesn't love a good mystery? And a big thank you to Andrew for providing the show with its latest Black Box Online Radio image. Andrew sent that in to blackboxonlineradio@aol.com. Anybody can write the show at that email address. You can also get me on Instagram, and my personal Facebook is in the description box too. A lot of good things there. So at the end of the episode, please feel free to have a look. Today we're going to be talking all about the Zodiac Killer suspect, Guy Ward Hendrickson. And there are a couple reasons why I wanted to do this episode. The first is, he is a suspect that I've never covered before who has received a lot of media attention. But the second reason is, Guy Ward Hendrickson is not only a Zodiac suspect, and it's not even that he gets featured in the media, it's why was he featured in the media? And I think that is the bigger question that we can explore. Guy Ward Hendrickson is the guy that was brought forward by Deborah Perez, his daughter or stepdaughter, depending on which news source you've been reading. We will get into their family history later on. But I think we have to begin in the earlier part of the new millennium, because I did an episode last year talking about the Zodiac suspect Bill Menser. And in 2002, 3, and 4, Bill Menser became somewhat of a media sensation. He was featured in the tabloids, the ones that you could buy at the supermarket checkout, and they're saying, has the Zodiac Killer been identified? And he turned into a very mild media spectacle. And then, 7, 8 years later, you have Deborah Perez coming forward saying that her father was the Zodiac Killer, and not only that she was an active participant in the crimes. Most notably, she says that she authored the Melvin Belli letter, and the second is that she was present for at least 2 of the Zodiac crimes. The Zodiac has 4 canonical crimes: the Lake Herman Road shooting on December 20th of 1968, the Blue Rock Springs shooting on July 4th of 1969, the Lake Berryessa stabbing on September 27th of 1969, and the Paul Stein murder on October 11th of 69. Deborah Perez says that she was waiting in the car and she could hear the gunshots at 2 incidents, and that is most importantly, in her theory, the Blue Rock Springs shooting, but she says she was also in San Francisco for the Stein murder. It's important to note that Guy Ward Hendrickson did not live in San Francisco. He was a resident of Orange County, California. But It's a very, very large claim to make indeed. So, after 2009, Deborah Perez has somewhat of her own media spectacle. She is on the steps of a courthouse or something, and that's how I first learned about her. And she's talking about how she believes her father was the Zodiac killer, stepfather, really. And then I think that this is very similar to the way that Gary Francis Post, a Zodiac killer suspect who was brought to our attention in 2021, has been treated. Maybe every 8 or 9 years, every 10 years even, some Zodiac suspect that doesn't have an enormous amount of credibility gets featured in the media, and they turn it into a circus. The media just runs wild with these ideas, and it turns into a very difficult game of trying to prove somebody wrong. Like, well, if Deborah Perez is telling the truth and her father was indeed the Zodiac killer, if she is not telling the truth, well, then where are the flaws in her theory? And to help us out, we're going to go over to an article from findlaw.com, and this one was written by Javier Lavanino. A California woman claims that her father, one Guy Ward Hendrickson, was the Zodiac killer. Reports the San Francisco Examiner. Yes, if a 47-year-old real estate agent named Deborah Perez's claims turn out to be true, one of history's most notorious and apparently elusive serial killers would turn out to be a former carpenter from Southern California. I think it's really odd, though, that I was comparing him to Gary Francis Post, and Gary Post was a house painter. Guy Ward Hendrickson is a carpenter. Maybe they worked on a project together. That was sarcasm. Unfortunately, going directly to the source on this claim won't be possible considering that Guy Ward Hendrickson died in 1983. Also up front, it should be noted that Perez is currently taking part in a documentary about the killings, so perhaps a big, maybe even huge, grain of salt is called here. I think that it's a little bit more than a grain of salt, and I do appreciate Javier for adding a little bit of humor in with that line. I mean, it's a very, very difficult thing to do for her to just accuse her father, because as I understand this, and I would like to cite the Zodiac Killer channel's video on this, Deborah Perez was watching America's Most Wanted, and she saw an episode about the Zodiac Killer, and then she was suddenly reminded of the events that happened with her father, most notably looking at the composite sketch of the Zodiac that was done after the Stein shooting, and thinking, hey, wait, that's my dad. And then she started having these memories and putting it all together, and she recalled writing the Melvin Belli letter. I mean, the Melvin Belli letter begins with, "This is the Zodiac speaking." It's like, well, I maybe if it were the Exorcist letter that doesn't have "This is the Zodiac speaking" at the front of it, or on the top line, rather, then she could say that she simply forgot. You'd think, though, that, I mean, with the Zodiac Killer operating in California, and if it is true that she wrote that out, she would have recalled it before. But again, that's her story, that she saw that episode of America's Most Wanted and then started putting these memories into place. But I guess I'll just get to one point. This isn't even extremely relevant. You notice that his last name is Hendrickson. Her last name is Perez. And as I understand it, she is not his biological daughter. She is a stepdaughter, or maybe some type of adoptive relationship. But Guy Ward Hendrickson met Deborah Perez's mother when they were living in Tijuana, Mexico, and Deborah Perez and her mother then moved to America after the marriage. So that's not really a big deal. I just wanted to clarify that. However, Perez did not go as far as to say she was at the scene of all of the Zodiac shootings. She says that she was present for at least one of the killings and wrote some of the notes and that the infamous killer sent to the police and media. She explained, "I was a child and I just thought I was helping my dad. Perhaps keeping quiet about it for decades might also have turned out to be pretty helpful to her dad as well." Well, she explains that she didn't know about the Zodiac killer until she saw a composite drawing on America's Most Wanted several years ago, and after looking at letters online and determined that her father, Guy Ward Hendrickson, had confessed to his daughter that he had killed people, but never said that he was the Zodiac killer. It all makes sense now, right? Question mark. She kept quiet because she thought they were just regular non-Zodiac killings. At any rate, Perez claims to have some arguably hard evidence. The glasses worn by the slain cab driver in San Francisco, Paul Stine, which he said her father took from the crime scene, are still in his possession. Forensic testing to match DNA and or the prescription on the glasses may come about in the future, as well as testing of the stamps and envelopes on the Zodiac letters. Perez says she sealed. So she says that she sealed the letters, and we talked all about this in the DNA episode that came out about 2 weeks ago on the Zodiac Monday segment. As always, you can like and subscribe to follow along with these true crime and Zodiac killer discussions. Now, one person who would definitely challenge that is Mike Rodelli, and I'll share some more of his stuff tomorrow about how they simply don't have the Zodiac's DNA, according to Mike Rodelli, author of In the Shadow of Mount Diablo and the Hunt for Zodiac. He said in his piece, which he authored for this program, that he just thinks they do not have the Zodiac killer's DNA. In fact, it's possible and highly likely that the Zodiac didn't even lick the stamps, or whoever it is, the Zodiac or an active participant. Instead, someone was using a sponge and sealing them with water. So I just wanted to put that one in there. But about having Paul Stine's glasses, did the Zodiac killer take Paul Stine's glasses after the Stine shooting? Now, Richard Grinnell and Mike Morford can correct me if I get any of this wrong, but I was listening to an episode of their podcast, Zodiac Speaking, and they proposed that the Zodiac killer may have murdered Paul Stine, taken some items from the taxicab, such as a wallet, keys, a piece of Paul Stine's bloody shirt, and Paul Stine's glasses, and that the Zodiac put on Paul Stine's glasses and he was wearing them himself when he walked away from the taxicab after the Presidio Heights shooting, and that was just a way to alter the witness descriptions. And as we know very clearly, the most famous descriptions of the Zodiac killer came after the Stine shooting. How everybody's going to be looking at the glasses on the composite sketch, and maybe the Zodiac or the person who murdered Paul Stine didn't even wear glasses regularly. I do have to note that the Stine murder seems very methodical, whereas something like Lake Herman Road or Blue Rock Springs, those don't seem to have a very high amount of crime scene awareness. There appears to be something a little bit stealthier about the Stine shooting, and the Lake Berryessa stabbing, which occurred on September 27th of 1969, is not very stealthy. If anything, it's brash. Someone is wearing the costume, who is tying the victims up, and having an extended conversation with Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard. Perhaps there could be some level of crime scene awareness, but it's definitely brash. It's committing a crime in the daylight, wearing a big dorky costume, and so many ways that could go wrong. And really the only thing that I think allowed the Zodiac to get away with that one is the location must have been scouted out, and he determined that there was no one there to interrupt him. And even if a witness had seen him, he did have a gun, most likely a .45 caliber pistol on him, so I don't think he was worried about that. And this goes back to a lot of the comments that I've made on the channel, which I again learned from Dr. Todd Grande, that the Zodiac killer is perhaps just very low in neuroticism, not worrying about a lot of the ways that things could go wrong, instead just focused on committing the crimes. But there is something that just that appears a little bit sneakier about the Stine shooting. And I would also like to go over to a newspaper from North Dakota called the Park Rapids Enterprise, because they wanted to weigh in on this because Guy Ward Hendrickson was a native North Dakotan. Relatives of North Dakota native accused of being the Zodiac killer say the story is false. Despite what a California woman told reporters about her stepfather last week on the steps of a courthouse, native North Dakotan Guy Ward Hendrickson being the notorious Zodiac killer is a false story, says his relatives. Last week, Deborah Perez held a news conference in San Francisco and claimed that Guy Ward Hendrickson, her stepfather, who died in 1983, had committed several murders attributed to the never-solved Zodiac killings. The Zodiac killer is responsible for murdering at least 5 people in 1968-69 in the San Francisco area and writing cryptic letters boasting to the police about his crimes. The unknown mass murderer remains the most infamous uncaught serial killer in American crime lore, the San Francisco Chronicle reported. Of course they would say that. More than 1,000 people have confessed to the crime or named others as the killer. I'm really glad they clarified that because I don't think 1,000 people have confessed to the crime, but definitely more than 1,000 suspects. And you do have lots of people like Deborah Perez coming forward and saying that they knew who the Zodiac killer was. And I will continue with the article in a second, but I have to be very blunt with you guys. About once a month on the channel, I get somebody writing in saying that they either knew the Zodiac killer personally or they have solved the case. It's usually a woman around Deborah Perez's age. I really don't know what it is about psychology, but maybe we'll get some answers to that in the near future. But yes, they say that they knew the Zodiac and they provide all the reasons why that their person of interest was the Zodiac. Usually there's a first-hand connection, somebody that maybe a family member, ex-lover, or someone they went to school with, or sometimes it's just someone who says that they've cracked the case and they identified somebody maybe from an old yearbook and so on. And there's this overwhelming desire to insert themselves into the story. And the last person who wrote in saying that they knew one of the suspects, it was actually someone saying that she was the ex-girlfriend of Bill Menser, the tabloid suspect that I was talking about in the beginning. And Bill Menser was not only a Zodiac suspect, he was accused of many crimes by Maury Terry, particularly the 1974 murder of Arliss Perry, but he was convicted for the 1983 and 84 murders of Roy Radin and June Mincher, respectively. And I simply just had to tell that person, hey, once a month I get somebody saying that they knew a Zodiac killer suspect, and they don't provide a lot of reasons about how they know this story. Like, they're not corroborating the story, or there isn't really evidence to back up a lot of the claims, so I just have to disregard a lot of those. And I think if Deborah Perez didn't have the San Francisco Chronicle, I'm sure she would have loved to run her mouth off in the comments section, turn herself into a keyboard warrior. But back to the article here. Guy Ward Hendrickson was born in Velva, North Dakota in 1915. His niece told the Herald, Hendrickson was a nice, kind man to me, his niece said in an email to the Herald, responding to an interview request because of Perez's announcement. This is an enormous strike against Deborah Perez's claims about Guy Ward Hendrickson as the Zodiac killer. 1915. Because I'm going to do some very fast math. That would mean that her father would have been 53 or 54 at the time of the Zodiac killings. The first crime occurred in 1968, and then the next crime occurred on July 4th of 69, so he'd be 53, 54 at those times. A 54-year-old suspect. I have said very clearly to anyone who's proposing a suspect in his 60s, I think that is simply too old, and that just isn't consistent with all of the witness descriptions as well as the evidence. Okay, why do I say that? Brian Hartnell described the voice that he heard at the Lake Berryessa stabbing as between 20 and 30 years old. Someone as young as 20. I mean, you're going to say that a 54-year-old man was wearing that costume, and let alone that is an extremely risky thing to do for someone who is going up against Brian Hartnell, who was, 6'5", 6'6", 6'7". Brian Hartnell was a very tall and intimidating figure. I mean, even if they thought that he wasn't the most ferocious person in the world, his size alone should have intimidated the person. And not only that, Mike Mageau also estimated that the Zodiac killer would have been maybe 25, late 20s, maybe 30 even. So how would you reconcile that with someone who's 54 years old? And I know Mike Mageau was just catching a glimpse of the Zodiac out of the corner of his eye, and he was blinded by a flashlight, but there is no talk of anyone being about 54 years old, even after the Stein murder, wearing Paul Stein's glasses or not. There are descriptions of someone who is perhaps early 40s, but 54 years old. That is a big strike against Guy Ward Hendrickson as a Zodiac killer suspect. The woman who lives in the western United States asked that her name not be published to protect the family. That is the niece that was giving the interview response. Guy Ward Hendrickson was married 3 times and married Perez's mother and adopted Deborah Perez and her siblings. Again, Deborah Perez is not his biological daughter. Deborah Perez said that she was 7 when she accompanied her father, or stepfather rather, on several killings and wrote the famous Zodiac letter sent to the flamboyant lawyer Melvin Belli. She didn't realize what her stepfather had done until seeing a TV show a few years ago. Perez claims that she has the eyeglasses of one victim, the taxi driver Paul Stein. Local police said that they planned on checking out Perez's claims and evidence, but hadn't yet. Janice Hendrickson, age 65 of California, contacted reporters last week to say that she is one of Guy Hendrickson's natural children and to dispute Deborah Perez's story. She said Perez was lying about Guy Hendrickson to make money and that her father would never hurt anyone. My father was real bullheaded, and he did have a temper, and he did hit me, slapped the crap out of me, Janice Hendrickson told the Chronicle. But did he kill people? I don't believe he did. She added, I have fond memories of him, even though he went off on me now and then. Steve Huff, who edits the True Crime Report for the Village Voice and has followed the Zodiac killing, says Perez has told crime writer M. William Phelps and others that she is the illegitimate daughter of John F. Kennedy. There's little reason to believe Perez's claims about Guy Hendrickson, which he first heard a year ago, Huff told the Herald last week. Janice Hendrickson told California reporters that Perez, who was 47, again this is an article is from 2009, grew up in Mexico and was a child when Guy Hendrickson married her mother. Huff provided the Herald with the name of Guy Hendrickson's parents, including his mother's maiden name and his social security number. And to the credit of that writer, M. William Phelps, he truly tried to investigate Deborah Perez's claims, and he, unlike the family members of Guy Ward Hendrickson, does not call her a liar. In fact, he thinks that Deborah Perez believes everything that she is saying, and he says this in a different article. To go over to a post from DL Online, here's a quote from M. William Phelps when he says, I feel bad for Deborah Perez, Phelps said in an interview with the Herald. I really feel Debbie Perez believes what she is saying to be true, but I don't believe that it is true. And Phelps also disputes Deborah Perez's claims by saying that Phelps and others point out that the famous police sketch of the killer does not resemble Guy Hendrickson to any extent. People are going to have to do a lot better than that, though. Whether it's Deborah Perez or M. William Phelps, just why is that always the focus of everybody's discussion? Why is that always the center point of everybody's theory? Well, this suspect resembles the composite sketch that was done after the Stein shooting. That's really what triggered this entire rabbit hole for Deborah Perez. And M. William Phelps, to the credit, as I said, he gave her an honest chance. He doesn't agree with her theory, but he's like, well, Guy Ward Hendrickson doesn't resemble the composite sketch. That is insufficient. And I often go back to the Golden State Killer mystery because when you look at the composites that were done by witnesses in the Golden State Killer case, you'll see that some of them resemble some of Joseph D'Angelo's features, some of them resemble other parts of his facial setup. Like one of them really captured the eyes very well, another one really captured the lower facial features like the jawline and such. And if you were to put them all together in a combined composite, then you would actually have something that resembles the killer. So just looking at the composite sketches after the Stein shooting, after one incident in Zodiac activity, and trying to match a suspect that way is insufficient and ineffective. Those things are not going to be perfect. And even though some forensic artists are absolutely excellent and they're very, very good at their jobs, it's not the most effective way to identify somebody. What would be more effective would be, number one, DNA if they have it. Number two, maybe some other things like fingerprints off of the letters, or even that thing like writer's palm, the side palm print. Confessions, if someone does give a deathbed confession, or if there was any type of hard physical evidence. Let's say, for example, somebody was caught with a piece of Paul Stein's bloody shirt, like a little fragment of that, or one of the firearms that was used after the Zodiac killings. Or how about the Lake Berryessa hood that had Brian Hartnell's blood on it, and they could do some type of DNA comparison? That stuff would be hard evidence. Way more saying, well, I think he looks like the sketch after the Stein shooting. No, I don't think he looks like the sketch after the Stein shooting. How long is that going to go on? And the answer is until the end of time, because the case breakers who were proposing that other tabloid suspect, Gary Francis Post, did just that. That was the whole heart and soul of their claim, that, well, he has a line on his forehead which resembles the composite sketch, and to their credit, they said it was a scar that he had from brain surgery, and the They thought that the forensic artist truly captured that line, thinking that it was just a wrinkle or something, but in fact, it was a scar. But that's the same thing. Facial similarities compared to the composite sketches. That is an ineffective way of trying to identify the Zodiac killer. But because this story came out in 2009, they did do DNA testing on Paul Stein's glasses, and there are numerous headlines that have pointed out that the DNA simply was not a match. There was no match of any forensic evidence to connect the pair of glasses that Deborah Perez says she found to Paul Stein. And it seems like her case didn't go any further than that, the case that she was making for her stepfather being the Zodiac killer. Now, if you've heard some of the recent Zodiac Mondays episodes, you'll know that I had a big reversal about the Melvin Belli letter which Deborah Perez claimed that she had authored. At first, it seems like the handwriting on the Melvin Belli letter is different. If you look at the first Zodiac killer letter, it's very sloppy, it's tilting to the side. It looks like it was written in a very rushed, or even if it's not in a rushed way, it's just a sloppy letter. Whereas the Melvin Belli letter has different handwriting. It's very neat. It doesn't have that tilt to the side. And I said for the longest time, I thought that it was not authentic. I was like, some way, somehow, the same person did not write this letter. And people were like, well, the Melvin Belli letter, as we even heard in these articles, was mailed in with a piece of Paul Stein's bloody shirt, so it has to be authentic. Well, Deborah Perez just provided an explanation about how it could not. It could have been written by somebody else. An active participant wrote that letter. Again, I mean, she didn't. This is the Zodiac speaking at the top. I'm gonna remain level-headed. Okay, but she provided the explanation that she, as an active participant, wrote that letter, and that's why the handwriting is different. That's a woman who was writing that letter, and that's why it's neater and little girl handwriting, so to speak. But I had a big reversal on that. And now I do think that the Melvin Belli letter was authentic, because when I was reading Soren Korsgaard's book, America's Jack the Ripper, and I was looking at the Zodiac letters side by side and the envelopes to the letters, which Soren also posted in his book, very good book on the Zodiac killer called America's Jack the Ripper. The first volume was called The Crimes and Psychology of the Case, and the second one was The Definitive Account of the Zodiac Killer. And Soren provided a lot of resources, and he also has lots of citations, so you can go to the footnotes and you can see where he's getting his material from. But when you look at the envelopes, you can see that a little bit of the handwriting looks like the Melvin Belli letter, and they also resemble the first Zodiac letters. The envelopes look like they're almost halfway in between the sloppiness of the Zodiac letters and the neatness of the Melvin Belli letter. So, in short, with the Melvin Belli letter, I believe that was an authentic Zodiac communication. I don't believe that it was written by 7-year-old Deborah Perez, and the person was just trying to be on their best behavior with that one. And, it's possible that with the first Zodiac letters, especially prior to December of 1969, when the Melvin Belli letter was mailed, that handwriting disguise techniques that are used to disguise someone's handwriting were used. Evan from Texas went into this a lot in his first video about the Zodiac. Now, Evan from Texas does believe in the Zodiac hoax theory. He supports it rather than believing in it. But he showed about how it's almost as if someone was going through the manual of techniques to disguise one's handwriting, like perhaps turning the page upside down to write certain letters, or maybe elongated lines on some of them, or the tilt to the side. Like, all of these things are found in a manual that is used to disguise someone's handwriting. And, it's a theory, I do give him that, but it's somewhat of a compelling case, and because of all the examples that he provided, one more time, his channel is called Evan from Texas. But with the Melvin Belli letter, I think it's authentic. It's just the Zodiac's handwriting is indeed similar to that if you look at other things that the Zodiac has written. And what I have always said is, no matter what, even if it turns out I'm wrong and someone else did write the Melvin Belli letter, I believe that the same person wrote the Melvin Belli letter and the markings on the Phillips Petroleum map, because that handwriting looks identical to my own untrained eyes. I'm not a handwriting expert, but that handwriting looks identical. So I do think that it's all from one person, and I did an episode on the Eureka card recently, and I know that the Eureka card was mailed in 1990, and what are the chances that that's an authentic Zodiac communication? I mean, somebody like Deborah Perez would say no, because her suspect passed away in 1983, but for some reason, I just really think that that's the one that stands out to me. It really appears that there is a strong similarity in the printing of the letters compared to other things that the Zodiac has written. I mean, 1990, let's see, that would be 21 years after the final confirmed Zodiac crime. But I also said, though, that if there's any crime that has truly stood out to me, that like one of the unconfirmed incidents, it would be the 1986 Sacramento freeway murders that saw the deaths of Koyan Se-Chow and Choi Fao Sali. And I say that one because it's such a motiveless crime. There really is no solid explanation for that other. It's what the Zodiac killer kind of did at Lake Herman Road, or even at Blue Rock Springs to a certain extent. This is when a Laotian couple, they're of Laotian descent, and they are parked in a car on a freeway. They were doing a 3.5-hour car journey, and they believe that they just pulled over there to rest for a minute, and somebody came by and shot them. And to me, that just resembled an aging Zodiac killer, someone who was trying to commit a crime, but on the side of a freeway, when they knew that they could get away very easily. If there's no one else around, then they were just going to burn rubber, speed it out of there. I know the Zodiac would say that he didn't leave with squealing tires, but that's what that person would do. They would just sneak up on two people in a vulnerable place on a freeway and then just hightail it out of there. And it's not a completely baseless accusation, because then someone wrote the 1986 letter taking credit for a crime that occurred on the freeway. So that's the unconfirmed crime that truly stands out to me. Of course, the Domingos Edwards murders in 1963 heavily resembles the Lake Berryessa stabbing. It's possible, but as of now, I don't endorse any of the unconfirmed Zodiac crimes. I don't think that any of those are conclusively tied to the Zodiac killer. Some people really think the murder of Sherry Jo Bates is, or as we said, the Domingos Edwards shooting, maybe the murder of Ray Davis in 1962. I don't believe that any of those are truly the Zodiac killer. It's possible. But in conclusion, with Deborah Perez's claims, number one, I think Guy Ward Hendrickson is too old to be the Zodiac killer, being in his 50s at the time. The crime's 53, 54, as we said. But I do think there's something interesting about how he passed away in 1983, and that would be an explanation about why all of the authentic communications have ceased, and everything that I said about the freeway murders and the Eureka card, to the best of our knowledge, that is unconfirmed. And some people think the final Zodiac communication was written in 1974 with the Exorcist letter, and that the 78 letter, the 81 letter, the 82 Santa Claus card, the 86 and 87 letters, and the Eureka card were also just forgeries or fabrications, or they were not authentic Zodiac communications. And I do have to agree with the latter until I see something convincing otherwise. Oh, I'm curious about things, but until I see something definitive, like a definitive form of proof to the contrary, I will still say that those are unconfirmed. But about Guy Ward Hendrickson, we have to look at his accuser. And she was also saying that she was the illegitimate daughter of John F. Kennedy. And what is this? What is going on? Is she just the epicenter of all conspiracy theories? Instead, I think it is rather that somebody wanted to insert herself into the true crime world. She just couldn't be a researcher. She had to make the story about her. And over the last 12 months, as I said, I interact with these people very, very frequently. And I don't know what it is in the brain or what it is about that time of life, but usually in those stories that people say to me, they recall these events later on in life. Oh yeah, I forgot as a kid, but then I saw something and that brought back all of these memories. That's why they didn't remember it at age 30 or age 35 or age 40. But then the older they get, they start to experience these memory flashbacks of something related to the Zodiac Killer or the true crime world. I don't know if it's a delusional personality disorder, but the family of Deborah Perez, or her, I guess we would say stepsisters that we heard from in those articles, they approach it by saying she's a liar, she wanted money, she wanted to be part of a documentary. And I was talking to somebody on the Zodiac Killer channel. I'm also the host of the Zodiac Killer's Interview with the Expert series. And they said about Deb Perez that she was also trying to get a book deal out of it. And, I mean, whatever her true motivation is, only she knows. I mean, that writer, William Phelps, said very clearly, no, she's not lying. She genuinely believes this stuff, it's not true. That would possibly suggest that she has some type of personality disorder or some type of delusional disorder, and that people are just running with it. Or she is voicing these things publicly, and she would need some type of medical help. I don't know this, I'm not a doctor, but I definitely think about that, and I don't think that that is a harsh thing to say, that this person might not be completely aware of her mental faculties if she does indeed believe that her father was the Zodiac Killer and that she's the illegitimate daughter of John F. Kennedy. So I don't think Guy Ward Hendrickson was the Zodiac. Instead, I think that the case that has been put forward about him is rather flimsy. It relies too heavily on facial similarities to the composite sketch, which that one writer from FindLaw.com even said that he doesn't actually resemble the composite that much even, but no matter what, that is not the biggest piece of evidence that we should be looking for. Now, if Deborah Perez had provided those glasses, and there had been a positive DNA match with Paul Stein or another criminal, even if it was just Paul Stein's DNA, but yeah, these are Paul Stein glasses, there's a speck of blood here, and they could confirm that that was Paul Stein's blood, all right, I would be like, that's it. Her stepfather murdered Paul Stein. I mean, I'm not going to doubt everybody, and if the authorities and the FBI signed off on that, I'd be like, okay, case closed, your father's most likely the Zodiac Killer. But that didn't happen, so it's important to remember that suspects like this are going to come up very frequently. From time to time, the media is going to latch onto somebody's story, and they're going to try and export it to the entire world, whether it's Bill Menser, Gary Post, or Guy Hendrickson. They're going to run with these suspects, whether it's true or false, and it's going to create a little bit of a buzz, and then it's going to die down. But what do you think about Guy Ward Hendrickson as a Zodiac Killer suspect? What do you think about any of the things that I've said in this episode? And there have been a lot about the Melvin Belli letter being authentic, or the unconfirmed Zodiac crimes. Maybe you think you have something to say about the murder of Ray Davis or the Domingos Edwards murders, the Sacramento Freeway murders of 1986. Anything that you would like to share at all, you can put your ideas down in the comments section. One more time, you can write the show at BlackBoxOnlineRadio at AOL.com, and you can also go over to my Facebook page, which is in the description box. There's a link to that posted. And as always, BlackBoxNed88 on Instagram. And I will see you guys over there for the bonus podcast. Until next time.